Good morning, Vietnam. This is Ned Kramer. I'm one of the editors in chief with Hanley Wood, construction and design publisher. In particular, I'm the editor in chief of Architect Magazine, and I'm joined today by three of my favorite editor colleagues at Hanley Wood, who I will allow to ask them to introduce themselves from left to right, beginning with my colleague Katie.
I am Katie Weeks. I'm the editor of EcoStructure Magazine, which is one of the sustainability-focused design magazines at Hanley Wood, and we focus on the commercial realm.
And I'm Claire Conroy. I'm the editor of Residential Architect Magazine.
And I'm Rick Schwolsky, editor of EcoHome Magazine, which is the counterpart to EcoStructure, and we focus on residential green building.
So together, the four of us basically represent the four official AIA magazines as published by Hanley Wood. And given the fact that we're effectively, one of the major voices for AIA in the profession, I thought we could talk a little bit today about changes in design media and kind of how design journalism, design publishing, new technologies are affecting how we do what we do. So I'll begin with a question for you, Rick. The three of us, Katie and Claire and I, all work in D.C., and you're way out there in Colorado. So are you seeing a kind of transformation in actually how magazines and websites are made so that you're able to work remotely? Has that become easier over time? Has technology made that easier?
Oh, yeah, it has. I mean, I think that you can basically work through technology from anywhere and produce feel as connected as if you were in the same building, and in some ways more connected.
Too connected?
More directly. Sometimes I turn my BlackBerry off, yes.
I love it. So we're in the middle of rethinking how Hanley Wood does business, and it's fascinating to me, actually, the notion that we might become a little bit of a 24/7 office where people in all of our offices around the country are kind of collaborating in real time using technology. I don't know. So Claire, when you think about kind of the future of RA in particular, and you think about that kind of 24/7 news cycle that we're feeding, how do you kind of feed that kind of constant? We have the capacity to reach people now 24/7 rather than just monthly.
We
or
do.
bi-monthly.
We have a big beast to feed at this point. Well, I think in some ways this kind of instant availability of information about particular disciplines is a boon to a lot of folks, especially, I think, the residential practitioner, many of whom are at home, maybe in a home office, maybe feeling disconnected from other people who do what they do, and the ability to go online and see an updated website of what we do, to get a newsletter that's talking about what they're interested in, to go in our LinkedIn group and actually in real time have a conversation with another practitioner from another part of the country is really a cool thing. It used to be that residential architects were kind of siloed because they couldn't really hang out with the other residential architects in town because typically they would be very competitive, going up for the same projects at the same time. So I think the ability to reach out, connect with other members of their profession in a non-competitive situation, I think social media has helped that. I think our online websites have done that, and I think we'll just see more of that engagement in the future.
Okay, you're kind of, I think of you as the queen of Twitter. You probably, you twit way more than anyone else I know. And
that would be tweet.
Oops.
That's how familiar you are with it.
Exactly, right? So you rub two stones together, clap them. So I'm curious, how have you seen, how do you use the different tools? Do you have different ways of using the tools or different stories you're pushing on different kind of media platforms?
Yeah, I think what's really interesting about all the changes that are going on is that it's no longer, people always ask, how do I get published?
Right.
It's not about that one-time publishing, it's about the conversation. And for EcoStructure as a brand, and I think it's the same for RA and EcoHome and Architect, it's more about how do we foster that dialogue continuously, and it's using all the different mediums that are out there. So I just sent out a tweet right before we came out that said, are you in the exhibit hall? We're going on next. And I said, Bob Berkebile's here, come over. Yeah. And it's just that quick instant feedback. You have different people on the different mediums, so I may reach someone through Facebook, you may be reaching someone through LinkedIn, but it's more just about continuing that dialogue, especially our print edition, and it may be the same for you guys. It comes out every other month, so I want to have that online dialogue every day and kind of going into that 24-hour news cycle.
So is there, I think of sort of today, Twitter and some of the social media tools is the way you break news. You know, you sort of push things out.
Yeah.
So how would you use print? Like, how does print, for the three of you in your minds, kind of change or transform, given the prevalence of all the new media?
I think, I'll jump in. I think one of our interesting things is most of our news coverage is online first, because that's where it's breaking. It's easiest to push out to a number of audiences. It gets picked up, say, on Architects Newswire or EcoHome's site, and I know we're sharing a lot of content just to make sure it gets out there. That's changed in that the news coverage has decreased in the print magazine. What we tend to do then is it's more of a curated approach as to what's in print, picking out the key highlights, and again, driving people back to the website for that constant dialogue.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I think, though, it's a transition, especially someone who is not in the Twitter generation or didn't emerge out of the Twitter generation, to think in terms of web first and think in terms of social media. And so, that's a big transition for us, but definitely given the technical nature of what we cover, and how quickly that's evolving and how critical it's becoming in terms of building science and the standards and certifications and codes that are always evolving. We've got to cover that much faster than we can in preparing a print magazine that, with a 3-month lead time. We're working on feature articles that long. We've got to really be delivering breaking news as we can around these critical issues.
I would also just, give some praise to print and what it's good at. And I think because we all have the element of design coverage in what we do, that's still something that really works well in print. News, yes, that's a more temporal thing. I think it's better handled in more immediate media. But the ability to take in a whole project on paper, on pretty paper, is still something that even an online slideshow can't do very well. You can't kind of see the whole of something with plans and multiple images in one kind of package, in one nice package. So I think design media still has a place in print, and it's complementary with what websites can do.
I at two conventions in 2010, I was asked to speak to a group from the American Institute of Architecture students, and so I had prepped and spent all of my time thinking about how I was going to engage them in a conversation about new media, right? So it would be, apps and Twitter and other social media, and went into the conversation. After about 10 minutes of constantly hammering them with questions and pushing the conversation in one direction, finally one student, raised their hand and interrupted and said, "Could we talk about the magazine for a minute?" And it was a really powerful moment. I have this stereotype in my head that, I'm like right in the center. I'm 40 years old, and anyone older than me, my age or older, is all print. Anyone my age or younger is all digital, and never the twain shall meet. So I don't know if it's, Katie, you're I know you have a finger on the pulse of this.
I think it's an interesting thing with design magazines because it's a very visual profession. Like if you think about something like CNN, that's like a fast digital medium, whereas with architecture, you want to dig into those projects and get those case studies and the call-outs on specific products that are used or profiles of designers. And I think that's something that's unique about design and covering it from a perspective point of view or a publication point of view, is that you do get to dig in and you do get to do the news thing. Like what comes to my mind is the AIA Coat Top 10 green projects and
yes.
how we can cover that very differently. We had online news when the list broke, profiles of the winners, and then we get to explore them more in depth in our July print issue. So you can dig in different ways, which keeps it entertaining.
There's
Right.
still a place for like slow architecture, and slow design, where you can actually digest what you see and spend some time with it. And that's why I do think print is a good complementary medium, that you need the different pace of information, but you also need to be able to digest in addition to just kind of consume.
I agree with that.
So when you think about, say the introduction of television or the popularization of television in the 1950s, everyone thought, okay, radio's dead now. But in a sense, no, right? Radio just focused on what it was good at delivering, and TV occupied a different niche, and they, just there were more options in the
I
marketplace.
just kind of think of it as there's Pinterest that you can tag things to, but I still want a magazine that I can tear something out and tack it up on my billboard or
Yes.
put it in an inspiration book. There's still a need for that sort of medium.
Claire, I've heard you use the word fetish, actually, to talk about magazines themselves as design objects.
Yeah, and I think that's the slack that magazines need to take up. If you're going to commit to cutting down a tree and putting print and color and design on it, it's got to actually get better and better and better looking, because you have to justify that you're making that commitment to something that is solid and tangible. And we're actually thinking about sharpening our look in print and doing something else online, but making sure that when we do that print magazine, it looks as good as it can.
That's right. That's right.
Because architects are like the last people who even buy books.
Yeah.
They carry these giant coffee table books, these tomes, and they pour through them, and they love them. And the magazines should be as lovable too, I think.
That's right. The keepsakes, in a way. Kind of like a Hummel figurine, but different.
A keepsake diamond.
Love it. So let's talk a little bit about the way that some of the people here today and people who might be watching this on video later, architects, builders, designers, are actually able to engage in that conversation beyond, obviously, Twitter. We have hashtags, we have website URLs. How does someone go ahead and get published, or how do they get their name in print?
Take great photography of your projects.
Amen.
Number one, that's if you can get a great story angle and a very interesting project with a lot of great features, but the hook, I think, really is delivering that with good photography that's ready to go.
Now, if I am an architect and I have an idea for a story, I'm really passionate, say, about a particular technology, or my firm approaches professional practice in a really interesting way, if I write up a 1,000-word story and send it to you, are you guys going to publish it? You're shaking your heads
Probably
no.
not.
No.
No. So how does it work? How do I get my idea out there?
I mean, I know for me, what's great for me is if I love it when people are running into something that's challenging or they're approaching things in a different way. Give me a heads up and a quick paragraph, because that may spawn something that I'm hearing from other firms too, or it can lead to a larger discussion as opposed to spending all that time writing something that maybe the tone might not be right or it just doesn't fit in, but there may be something else that I can slot in, or it might spur 2-3 ideas down the line.
And my suggestion is publishing has been totally disintermediated by the internet. And I would suggest that architect with a great idea start a WordPress blog, write that story that is this burning passion for them. And you know what we'll do? We won't publish it on our website probably. We won't put it in the magazine. But what we might do is link to it and drive traffic that way. Then you are controlling exactly how you want your message to get out. You are controlling the conversation. We're sharing the conversation. Everyone can be a publisher. We don't hold the keys anymore, frankly. So, go ahead and take them and drive the car wherever you want to go.
Back in the late 80s and early 90s when I first got into publishing, I always thought of the editor's role as kind of, you had a megaphone and you were just shouting out to your audience, and now it really is that kind of multi-way dialogue, right? We don't hold a megaphone anymore, So what about timing? Last question would be, if I'm not famous, if I don't work for a major firm, or company, how do I kind of begin to get in? Oh, I'm seeing actually 2, 1. Thank you very much for joining us. Sorry, interrupt myself there. I wasn't watching the clock carefully enough. But anyway, great conversation, guys. Thank you.
We can continue it on Twitter.
That's right.
To be continued.